When our founding fathers sat down to write the Constitution, they ran into a bit of a problem when deciding how to elect our nation's president. Although the North favored a direct election method, the South didn't because a large percentage of its population was made up of slaves who could not vote. So they devised a compromise, the Electoral College. More than 200 years later, we're still using this archaic practice that was created in order to enable the South's civil rights abuses. We use it despite the fact that we're a role model of democracy around the world, and it's a system where some people's voices count more than others, which is fundamentally goes against democracy. Every other office in our nation, from tax assessor all the way up to the Senate, is decided through direct election, except for our highest office, the President of the United States. I think that's a little backwards. Part of the problem with the Electoral College is that people who live in staunchly Republican or staunchly Democratic states feel like their vote doesn't count. For example, if you were a Republican living in California, it would be hard to convince yourself that it was really worth it to go out to the polls, because no matter how many Republicans do come out and vote, the Democrats are always going to come up with a majority in that state, and all 54 of the electoral votes for California are going to go to the Democratic candidate. I think a system that makes people feel like their vote doesn't count encourages voter apathy. As you can see here on this line graph, I've charted out the voting trend for the past 50 years, and we haven't had more than 60% of the voting age population come out and vote since 1968. That's pretty terrible track record. Another problem with the Electoral College is that it gives rural states more weight. For example, in 1988, the 7 least populous states in our country, which were Alaska, Wyoming, District of Columbia, Vermont, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Delaware, had a population of a little bit more than 3 million people. But their states had a total of 21 electoral votes. Now, Florida, with a population of a little over 9 million people, also had 21 votes. So, effectively, it's like saying that Florida had about a third of the weight in the national election that those 7 least populous states did. Another thing the Electoral College allows is a president who does not have the popular mandate in the country to become president. This has happened 4 times in our history. It happened with John Quincy Adams in 1824, with Rutherford Hayes in 1876, with Benjamin Harrison in 1888, and I think we all remember this last one was Gore and Bush in the election in 2000. In the 2000 election, Gore had about 500,000 votes more than Bush did when it was all tallied up. But since Bush won 271 of the electoral votes and Gore only won 266, Bush became president. A president that does not have popular mandate and is in office always has questions of legitimacy surrounding his presidency. The world we live in today, where we have to be on guard for terror threats, where we're worried about our economy and it's shaky, and we have a threat of nuclear war, is not a time that I want to have people doubting the legitimacy of my president. It also demeans democracy, because democracy is supposed to be the will of the people. And if it was the will of more people for Gore to be president, then he should have been president by the standards of democracy. There's also the little talked about option is that if the Electoral College fails and neither candidate comes up with 271 votes, which is the majority, it defaults to the House, where each state gets 1 vote. Now, the representatives in the House are almost guaranteed to vote along party lines, and this is probably the method that is going to get the least happiest results. And these are just a few of the many reasons why the Electoral College should graduate. A direct election is simple. It gives everyone 1 voice and 1 vote. If you feel this way too, Please follow the link under the video to the petition I've created to abolish the Electoral College in favor of direct election. Thank you, and y'all have a happy holiday.